Hi, I'm Kalpana Rao, a lifelong resident of Bangalore. And one of my most enduring memories of Bangalore is the completely insatiable appetite for the written word. I remember even as kids, my parents would subscribe to the newspaper, and our neighbors used to get the Deccan Herald. And it was never enough to read one newspaper, but most people couldn't afford to. So we would be sent across at least once a day to go to the neighbor's place and pick up, exchange newspapers. And it was not just that. I mean, there was this tradition of an annual magazine that would come out, the Diwali issue of most magazines, and the various families would form consortiums, and each family would pick up one magazine. And during Diwali time, there was a lot of sharing of these magazines too. It wasn't just the sweets and the crackers. There was the sharing of books and magazines that happened at that time. I remember my brother would mysteriously disappear and come back with fat wads of comics. And the urban myth was, of course, urban legend was, of course, that the exchange always took place in the graveyard, and I don't know why that was. And then we would get these stacks of comics, and there would be utter silence in the houses. The kids would be spread across in the various rooms and reading their own stack and then sharing the stacks. And it was great fun the way we spent our vacations exchanging comics and reading them. And my dream as a little kid was to have, and I'm honestly telling you this, my dream was to have a room which would be filled with comics and potato chips. It was just something that always stayed with me. I also remember my mother going to the city central library, as it was called. We were in Baldwin's, and my mom would come to school, drop off lunch, go walking to the city central library, which was on Double Road. Um, the KH Road, as it's called now, and she would get her books, her weekly fix of books from there. And later, the library moved to Jogpalyam, closer to our home in Indranagar, and then there was finally a library in Indranagar itself. Within Indranagar, we had this other tradition of, not tradition really, it was just a facility that we had where I remember it was called. Mary Circulating Library, where this gentleman would come home on a cycle and with magazines, and you had to pay him a monthly subscription of about 10 rupees, and you could take I think one magazine or two magazines from him, and he would come back like again a few days later, and within that time you would finish reading your own magazines and your neighbors magazines, and just maximize the potential of that 10 rupees, which went a long way in getting you to read all the latest magazines. We always had circulating libraries in every nook and cranny, and people were always up to date with all the latest James Hadley Chase and Perry Mason, and a staple diet in every home. You always had P.G. Wodehouse, Earl Stanley Gardner. These were the books that were always there, and the aspirational ones, of course, were the Tintin comics and the Asterix comics, which came in a little later. Yeah, that's one memory of Bangalore that I'll always cherish: the love for the reading and the love for libraries and the love for getting books as free as possible.